Welcome to the weekly message from Unity North Tampa, presented here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. Today's message is Science and Religion and was recorded on Sunday, April 24th, 2022.
Good morning. Oh, I turned around and there's a whole lot more people in here, so welcome. Welcome. Again, my name is Reverend Don Barton, and I am so honored to be here to fill in for Reverend Cynthia Alice, who is just a friend of mine that I had the honor of working with for about 6 or 7 years over in Orlando. So it is nice to be in her new spiritual home also. And I'm honored that she asked me to help kick off this series on taboo. Taboo, those things we're not supposed to talk about. A taboo. Okay, we'll try that one. A taboo. It's something culturally or religiously. Basically, what is that? It's something we're not supposed to talk about. It's someone, some place, or something we're not supposed to associate with because someone else has said so. Because it might be difficult. It's one of those hard conversations. It makes people uncomfortable. You just don't want to go there. But on our spiritual journeys, to grow, that's exactly where you have to go. Exactly where you have to go, into those uncomfortable places. And there's a quote from the Bible in the Chronicles that even tells us directly to be strong, don't lose your courage, for the rewards of your work are great. There are rewards for your work, and going in the difficult places and going into those hard conversations is work. It is work. And so this morning, I'm going to talk about the taboo that you don't really want to talk about ever, and that's that science versus religion. It's one of those dinner conversations that will kill a dinner party. Because you've got people on extremes of both of these ideas. For example, if you literally interpret the Bible, which people have done, there were some scholars in the 1600s, 1642, a guy named John Lightfoot, actually went with some of his colleagues and figured out when the universe began, based on a literal interpretation of the Bible. And as so, it happens that the universe was created the week of October 16th to the 24th in the year 4004 BC. Adam was created on October 23rd, 4004 BC. Now, that person's going to have a hard time having a conversation with a scientist from today who says, I calculated a little bit differently. I think it happened 13 billion years ago. There's something to reconcile. Because we're on these, I'm at this end and you're at that end, and how do we get to the middle? How do we have a conversation? How do we look at this differently than from our starting points? But we need to do that. And to do that, we need to take it up to a little bit higher level. See it from a higher level than just numbers on a piece of paper to what a calculation came up with. Because science and religion aren't unrelated. They aren't opposites. As a matter of fact, Albert Einstein said that science without religion is lame. It's lame. One of the greatest scientists of all time said science without religion is lame. But he also said religion without science is blind. So there has to be a reconciliation there somewhere. We need to have this tough conversation. We need to come together and find common ground and see if there isn't something more the same than different. And I think in most conversations and most polarizations, there's more in common than there is different. So we go to Charles Fillmore. Charles Fillmore, Unity co-founder, was very, very interested in science. He followed it explicitly. He followed all the great thinkers of his time and all of the great scientific revelations and discoveries that were coming out during his lifetime. And he was convinced that science would actually one day prove the existence of God. He didn't see them as mutually exclusive. He said they were doing the same thing, just coming at it from different directions. He actually got very scientific in his approach to his teachings. He actually called them practical Christianity. Practical Christianity, he said, because for this spiritual belief system, these truth principles that he was teaching to make sense, they had to muster scrutiny at all levels. So he looked at practical Christianity as, scientifically, you look at it and you prove it with logic. You prove your religion with logic. He said, if you're going to answer the questions of why we exist, you keep asking questions until you get, well, if this exists, then what came before it? And why did that cause that? Until you get back to where you can't ask any more questions because you've reached primal cause. The original precept of any logical thinking, your first precept, your first premise, primal cause. You can't get past it. And Charles Fillmore called it God. That you keep going backwards in your explanations and reasonings for things until you get to something that you can't get beyond, and that is God. And if you look around and look through how the world and the universe operates, Charles said, that primal cause, that God, is good. Only good comes forward from that. And that's his premise that he begins what we call unity from. And he says logically, every one of the teachings have to come logically from that, and then it must be proven in the physical world. And that's what unity is. If you say you can manifest and divine substances everywhere, do it. You can use the power of prayer to heal, then do it. Does that hold true in the physical world? And from his understanding and his experience and ours, they do. So he was very logical, very scientific about his ideas of religion. At the highest level, he said that primal cause, that God, is divine mind. He called it principle. He called it truth. He called it being. God, divine mind, oneness. So that's the religion side. So what do the great thinkers of science think? Well, Einstein says they're related. They're definitely related, religion and science. Can't have one without the other. And what you find when you get to these big thinkers of the theory of science is they come around to the same place too. There's a physicist named Edwin Schrödinger. May ring a bell because there's this Schrödinger paradox that was very, very famous in scientific circles, and that's a whole different talk. But if you've heard of it, that's the same Schrödinger. He's the one that said he can prove that a cat in a box is both alive and dead at the same time, which is a tough one. So this man can think outside that box, very, very high level thinking. He studied quantum physics. So here he is in quantum physics, and he's looking at how everyone exists. And what he realized is that he himself is a single consciousness that arose out of his learnings, experiences, and his consciousness was singular to him. And yet he walked and operated in this real world. But if his consciousness was singular to him, then so is yours, and yours, and yours, and yours. And where each of those individual consciousnesses overlap is what we call the real world. And that's what we're all doing in this room right now. We have our own individual consciousness, but we're in this real world of this setting. And there are people doing the exact same thing all over the world right now. And yet they're in their reality, but there's only one reality. So he said there's 7.8 billion individual consciousnesses on the planet right now that are all overlapping, and yet there's only one reality that we're all in, which means somehow we're all functioning in one mind. We're all in one mind. Charles Fillmore said divine mind. This theoretical physicist says we're all in one mind. He came at it from a completely different area, a completely different venue, and all of a sudden he's saying the same thing. There's only one mind. We're all connected. There's unity principle 1 and 2. Charles Fillmore, in Complete Logic, says if there's only one presence, there's his premise. There's only one presence and one power throughout the universe, God, and it is good. That's your starting point. 2, logically deduce from that, well then, I'm here, you're here, so we have to be part of all that's good. So we're part of that good. That good is in us. Mr. Schrodinger says, we're all here, so we must be part of that divine one. Charles came down from the top down. He went from the bottom up. Got to the same place. Divine mind, one mind, same thing. Science and religion. Not quite so far apart. And then we have David Bohm. David Bohm is a theoretical physicist, and he looked at empty space. And he said that the same empty space that is between the stars in the universe is the same empty space that's between the atoms in your body. Actually, between the neutrons and the protons in the very nucleuses of the atoms in your body. It's the same space. And we've been taught that's empty space. Empty space. But he said, what if it's not infinitely empty? What if that space is infinitely full? Infinitely full. Charles Fillmore called that divine substance. He called it the unmanifest, the unseen spirit. He said if everything between what we see is actually full, not empty, then what we do see arises out of it. Divine substance made manifest. That everything has to be connected. That we're all in one connected level of existence, of being, of substance. And even for me, that was kind of like way over my head. And I'm a visual person, so I'm like, how does this make sense? I have to picture this somehow in my mind, that the empty space between us is actually the full space, and we're the empty space that came out of it. So how are we all connected? Me to a star, if what's between me and the next star is full, not empty. And you know what occurred to me? My mom's Jell-O salad. Think about it. Remember the Jell-O salad from when I was a kid, where you got the Tupperware bowl and you turned it upside down and you filled it with lime Jell-O or cherry Jell-O that you could see through, and you dumped in the can of fruit cocktail, stirred it up. It got cold, you turned it over, popped it out, and you've got this Jell-O mold that has all these little pieces of fruit stuck in it, just suspended in there. And I thought, that's exactly what it is. Because if you've got that plate of Jell-O and you touch one of those little pieces of fruit on one side, the whole thing jiggles and the piece of fruit over here moves too. And that is what David Bohm was describing. That what was between them isn't empty space. It's infinitely full. And therefore, you're all connected. There's a unity principle. We're all connected. We are all connected. That if you're hitting one side of the Jell-O mold and you're not being nice, then the piece of fruit on the other side of the Jell-O mold is kind of giving it this. They don't know where it's coming from or why, but they're getting jerked around. But the opposite also applies then too. Because if you're being nice to this side of the Jell-O mold, the other side of the Jell-O mold is going, something good's happening. Something good's happening. And that's what we teach in unity. That if we change ourselves, if we raise up our consciousness, if we become better people, if we're more loving, if we're more peaceful, that ripples out into the world because we're all connected. You're moving the Jell-O. You're moving the Jell-O. That's what you're doing by coming here, by doing your prayer and meditation, by living these truth principles. that the science behind the religion that we're living is congruent. It's not in opposition to what we're doing and what we believe. That science and religion are actually trying to explain the same thing, why things work. Science actually gives you the what is here. Religion is saying why it's here, what should be here. But we're both trying to describe what's going on behind what we see. It's all coming out of our quest for understanding, either of the physical world or the spiritual world. And what all of our great thinkers are seeing is that we're getting to the same place. We're using different language. We're calling it theology or quantum physics. But if they start talking to each other, they all get to a place where we get to a level where something else is going around and going on and connecting us and forming the basis of all that we know. And we call it different things, but there's only one thing there. We call it God. They might call it primal cause. They might call it Big Bang, the beginning. But we keep coming back to the same thing. We're not that far off. So that's why we want to do these taboo series. Because there may be some understandings behind difficult conversations. There may be growth for us in understanding what other people are talking about that we don't understand what they're saying. There was a whole lot of things I read about these scientists, and I didn't have a clue what they were saying until they would get to an area and I would go, aha, they're calling it, they're describing it. That's God. They're coming back to the same place. So I encourage you to go back to that verse. It's in 2 Chronicles that I started with. Be strong and do not lose courage, for there is reward for your work. Be strong and do not lose your courage, because there is reward for your work. So have those difficult conversations. Look into those things you don't understand. And find, as the Bible promises us, the rewards for your work. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the weekly message from Unity North Tampa here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. This channel is made possible because of listeners just like you. If you would like to support the channel with your tax-deductible contribution on an ongoing basis or through a one-time gift, head over to experienceofthesoul.com. This message is copyright 2022, Unity North Tampa, all rights reserved. Our theme music, The Light of God, is composed by Shannon Croft and used with permission and available at shannoncroft.com. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is a production of 818 Studios.
Hey friends, Sean here, your Experience of the Soul producer. I want to take a moment to tell you about something truly exciting. The Soulworks online community, created by your host, Cynthia Alice Anderson, and available on the Mighty Networks app. If you're looking for a place where you can explore your spiritual path, connect with others, and grow in a meaningful way, then this is for you. Soulworks is so much more than an online community. It's a safe, inclusive space for spiritual exploration, self-discovery, and personal transformation. Inside the community, you'll find everything from uplifting spiritual studies to soul-centered growth practices, meditations, affirmations, and so much more. It's a space where you'll always be supported and never judged. The best part, membership is free. You'll have access to powerful resources, inspiring content, and a supportive group of like-minded people who are all on their own unique spiritual journeys. And if you're ready to dive deeper, there are premium options available to enhance your experience with a live Monday night talk series and extended, deeper meditations. If you're seeking a place to connect, grow, and nurture your soul, We would love to have you join us in the Soulworks community and see where this journey can take you. Visit my.soulworkscommunity.com today.